All right, so get this. Picture this. What if we could crowdsource the future?
Crowdsource the future.
Yeah. And not just, like throwing darts at a board, but actually putting some skin in the game, making predictions about everything and anything, from elections
Yeah,
to, the next Picasso to go for
I
millions.
like it.
That's the kind of world that Gnosis is building.
Yeah, they're talking about taking prediction markets. We've seen those before,
Right.
but taking them to a whole new level,
Exactly, and using the blockchain to do it.
powered by the blockchain. That's right.
And that's what we're diving deep into today, their white paper, gnosiswhitepaper.pdf.
Which is a fascinating read, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take your word for it. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Lots of big ideas in there.
We'll consider this our, crash course for everybody
Yeah.
listening. And honestly, even if you're not, deep in the blockchain space,
Sure.
I think this is fascinating because it really gets at this problem of information overload that we all experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We are just drowning in data these days. Opinions everywhere.
Everywhere. How do you even know what's reliable anymore?
Right. And how do you know what's worth your time to even, get to the bottom of?
Yeah, it's like that old saying, opinions are like, well, you know the rest. But Gnosis is kind of saying, okay, enough with just opinions. Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's the whole idea.
It's about aligning incentives,
Yeah.
right? Because we know people are more likely to really think critically, actually do their research when they have something on a line, when their own resources are at stake.
So it's less, I think this will happen, and more like, I'm so sure I'm willing to bet on it.
Precisely.
Interesting.
And that's what makes these prediction markets so fascinating. I mean, remember Intrade,
Oh, yeah.
the platform that got shut down, but, they had a pretty good track record, eerily accurate on some pretty major events.
Yeah.
And that's what Gnosis wants to replicate, but globally,
Yeah.
on a much larger scale.
Okay, so they're aiming big. I get that. But what makes them think they can get around, all those regulatory hurdles that InTrade ran into?
That's the big question, right? And that's what I'm really curious about as we go deeper into this.
Yeah.
That gets to the heart of Gnosis's approach, and it's this idea of decentralization. Because they're built on the Ethereum blockchain, it means no single entity controls it. It's much more resistant to any kind of censorship.
Okay, so instead of one company, making all the rules, it's kind of spread out across this network of users.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I can see how that's appealing, but how does that actually work in practice? Walk me through it.
Okay, so we've got this decentralized, censorship-resistant prediction market thing happening. But how does it actually work? In my head, I'm picturing a digital marketplace.
Okay.
But instead of selling, hand-knitted scarves or whatever, it's predictions about the future.
You're on the right track. It's like, imagine there's this big event coming up, right?
Yeah.
It could be an election, the Super Bowl, or even the release date of the next, Marvel movie.
Okay, I'm with you.
So on Gnosis, you can create a prediction market around that event. Think of it as a simple question. Will this thing happen, yes or no? So will this movie release on time, yes or no?
Exactly. Now, let's say you're convinced it's going to get delayed. So you buy shares of no, and the price of those shares. That reflects how confident the entire market is in that outcome.
So if a bunch of people think, yeah, this movie's getting pushed back, the price of no shares goes up.
Exactly. And that's where that skin in the game concept we were talking about really comes into play. Let's say you were right, the movie gets delayed, boom, value of your no shares goes way up. You just made a profit from your accurate prediction.
Okay, that makes sense. But what's to stop someone with a ton of money from just coming in and manipulating the market?
That's where the whole design of this system really gets interesting because it's decentralized.
Hmm.
There's no one person or entity who can just waltz in and tilt the scales, right?
Yeah.
Plus, remember those tokens we were talking about earlier, GNO and OWL?
Right.
They play a pretty crucial role in all this.
Yeah.
So GNO, that's your governance token. Holders of that token, they get voting rights on all the big decisions about the platform.
So it's like having a say in how the whole system actually runs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
LWL, on the other hand, that's your utility token. That's what you use to pay the fees for creating markets, making predictions, all that good stuff.
Got it. So GNO's for the big picture stuff, and OWL is keeping the lights on. But why two separate tokens?
Good question. And that's where we get into some of the really clever design choices in Gnosis.
Yeah.
Having these two different tokens, it does a few key things. First off, it creates these specific roles within the ecosystem, right? So
Okay.
people holding GNO, they're incentivized to make sure the platform's governed well because that increases the value of their tokens.
That makes sense.
And then with OWL, since that's the utility token, its value is tied directly to how much the platform is being used.
Oh,
The more people are using Gnosis, making predictions, the more demand there is for OWL.
interesting. So you have this like feedback loop going on where like if Gnosis is successful, OWL becomes more valuable.
Exactly. And here's another little detail they threw in there.
Yeah.
OWL, it's actually designed to be slightly inflationary.
Wait, inflationary, doesn't that usually mean that over time the value goes down?
Yep. You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, it's actually intentional. They want to encourage people to use OWL, not just hoard it.
Okay.
Because remember, the more people are using the platform, the more valuable that OWL token becomes.
So this slight inflation with OWL keeps things moving.
Yeah, keeps people engaged.
I like it, but this whole time I'm thinking, like, this has to be about more than just, will this movie come out on time?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, what's the bigger picture here?
Yeah, this is really just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
The white paper, it hints at some really wild applications for this tech.
Okay, so give me the wildest one, lay it on me.
Okay, so think about something subjective, right? Like figuring out how much a painting's actually worth.
Okay.
Like right now, it's all experts,
Reputate.
gut feeling, yeah.
Big egos.
Exactly. But with Gnosis, you could have a prediction market. People weigh in on what they think a piece of art's future value is actually going to be.
So instead of one person saying this is worth X, it's kind of like the wisdom of the crowd decides.
Exactly. Yeah. Or imagine this, using Gnosis to make those self-driving cars everyone's talking about even smarter.
Okay.
Prediction markets could help them get ahead of traffic patterns.
Yeah.
Maybe even predict accidents before they actually happen.
Now we're getting a little bit sci-fi, but I can see how, like, in a world with self-driving cars everywhere,
Right.
the accuracy of those predictions is
Yeah.
really big deal.
Huge.
What else? What else you got?
All right. So what if we could use this to get ahead of, like, disease outbreaks? Imagine a system that's tracking in real time what people are predicting about where a virus
Right.
might spread next.
That's wild.
That could totally change how we respond to these pandemics.
So instead of reacting after the fact, it's like you're tapping into this, like, awareness, like a global early warning system almost.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. The white paper calls it Futarchy.
Futarchy.
Yeah, like using these prediction markets, but for governance.
Whoa, hold on, like running a country with this.
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But that's the idea. What if instead of voting for a politician based on, what they're promising,
Right.
we voted based on what the predicted outcome of their policies would actually be?
So less about like what they say they're going to do and more about like what are the actual consequences going to be.
Exactly. It's a system that prioritizes like actual results, right?
Yeah.
Could completely change how we think about leadership and who we hold accountable.
Okay, that's a lot to process, but like even if Gnosis like gets even kind of close to this, it's like
It's a big deal.
this is huge.
Yeah, and there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. We keep saying Gnosis is this ecosystem.
Right.
They're really encouraging developers to build on top of what they've created. They have this Gnosis dev kit.
Okay.
Programs like Gnosis X and Y, they're putting resources behind this.
So they're not messing around?
No, they're serious. They see the potential here, right?
Yeah.
They're laying the foundation for a truly decentralized, community-driven ecosystem.
This has been quite the deep dive. We've gone from like, betting on sports to like potentially, reshaping global governance.
I told you, big ideas.
So for everyone listening who's like, mind blown right now, what are the key takeaways here?
Gnosis, it's about more than just these prediction markets, right?
Right.
It's about how do we take advantage of this collective intelligence, to navigate what's become a really complex world.
Yeah.
It's about rethinking how we get our information, how we make decisions, even how we govern ourselves.
It's about like a future where information isn't just power. It's like, a tool to actually like make things better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like any new technology, there's going to be challenges along the way, regulations, bumps in the road for sure.
Of course.
But you can't deny the potential here.
I mean, that's what makes it so fascinating to talk about, right? Like, we're not just like observing, we're part of this whole evolution of how information shapes our world.
We're in it now.
And that's a powerful thought to leave everyone with. Until next time, keep asking those big questions and, keep diving deep.